I'm a tad speechless, to be honest, which is not common for me. The new MacBook Air, the new MacBook Pro, both with Apple Silicon, the M1 processor, and I can't help but say they set their own new benchmark. So hit subscribe. You'll find all my videos as they come through. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all those things so that you can get much of this content as it comes. But right now, welcome to EFTM and our first look at the new MacBook lineup. All right, so look, you don't get a lot of time with a laptop to review it. Even 2 weeks is not enough. You kind of get a sense of some things, you get to use it, you get a feel for it. I've had laptops that I've come nowhere near getting a full grasp on. So let's be clear. I've used these for a week and I've got two of them, so I've been edging between each of them. Let me start by saying battery life is phenomenal. There's no doubt about that. It's almost weird when you look at the battery meter and you think, well, hang on a minute, why is that still at, whatever percent? This thing's at 30%. I've never charged it. It's never been plugged in. No, I haven't used it constantly for a whole day. I've been using it on and off, but normally you're just always reaching for that cable and thinking, where do I plug that in, or when did I last do that? So the first thing I always do with any device is I head to Geekbench, because I think that you need some way of measuring a device's performance against another. That's fine. But when I did it, I thought, hang on a minute, this can't be right. There's something going on here. So on the Pro, I got a single core score of 1685 and a multi-core score of 7295. Wait a minute. On the Air, I got a single core score higher at 1719 and a multi-core score at 6967. What does that all mean? Let me tell you. So if you look, and Geekbench publish all this, it's publicly available info. If you look at the benchmark for other Macs, that's better than an Core i9 3.6 gigahertz iMac. What? That computer in a single core performance, that iMac with an i9, 1251. These computers in the 1700 mark in a multi-core score. Obviously, there are some extreme Macs out there. The Mac Pro with a Xeon 2.5 gigahertz, 28 core processor. Of course, that's getting 18,000. But let's just drop down here and see if we can find an 8 core score. Oh, here we go. Let's run with an iMac with a Core i9 running an 8,200 result. Oh, okay. So where's the Mac Pro last? A MacBook Pro, this one here, 7,600. It's barely behind one Pro, an 8-core Pro, and one 8-core i7. It blows the previous Pro out of the water. Let me try and find here a MacBook Pro. MacBook Pro, 15-inch. That's a 15-inch MacBook Pro. This is a 13, i7, 4,900, and this thing's running 7,000 and something. So on core benchmark technology, these things are out of this world, like outrageous performance. I can't describe it any other way. But then that's a benchmark software, and I thought to myself, well, maybe Geekbench and others, they articulate in a way that is purely driving the processor, and that's not real-time performance. But I got to tell you, running a Final Cut session on both these two and my son's almost brand new 13-inch MacBook Pro, which I bought 3 months ago. Thanks very much for letting me know this was coming out. It did a good job. So here's what happened. Editing, using it, no dramas at all. When you hit the render button, you start to export the file. That's when you start to see a difference. It wasn't ridiculous, let me be sure. Now, I didn't do a high-end edit. I just did some effects and ran some transitions in, and just a basic video, all 4K. And there was no doubt that it was behind by many minutes in terms of the processing power. Over a 10 or 12 minute export, these were 3 or 4 minutes faster. So that's the performance you want, and that's the enhancement you get from these. But I think it's fascinating that the M1 chip is able to pump out that level of performance. Okay, so then I went, what's another benchmark, right? What's a true video rendering benchmark? So I found a thing called Cinebench. Again, a benchmarking tool that looks at the graphics capabilities here. Essentially, how well will it render video? So I ran that across those 3 machines. Again, this brand new Air, this brand new Pro, my son's i5 MacBook Pro, which was $2,000, the same price as these guys are. It's all good. Now, I took some photos of the results just so I could remind myself. So on the MacBook Air, the result was about a 6,500 score. What does it mean? Doesn't matter. On the MacBook Pro, it was about a 7,700 score. On the previous MacBook Pro, a 3,800 score. Basically, these things appeared in the top 5 list of those benchmarks. Now, there was a second set of benchmarks that I was able to do, so I did those again. The MacBook Air, 1,400. The MacBook Pro, 1,492, just actually a touch ahead of this one here, the Air. And then the old iMac, my son's, the poor bugger, 900. So an Intel Core i5 iMac Pro from 3 months ago, I mean, it's like comparing an old i3 to an i7. I don't even know. It's just, I'm genuinely without words as to how to compare these devices, because there is an absolute powerhouse of performance under the hood here. Here's the thing though. Why on earth would you buy the Pro? The Air? Unbelievable performance. Exact same processing chip. In one of the Air models, it's got a 7-core graphics GPU. They've just disabled one core. It's the exact same processor. What happens is there's cooling built into the Pro. So even though they're the same power under the hood, once you push this device to an extreme, it'll go, whoa, whoa, melting down here, brah, and the throttling will occur on the processor. Whereas this guy, because it's got cooling capabilities, it'll allow that to push through that barrier, and it'll struggle to get warm. In fact, one of the things I noticed, there's no fan on this, there is a fan on this, but sitting them with a third in the middle, the old MacBook Pro, that fan was spinning during those benchmark tests. So on the old Intel processor, the fan kicked in at an extreme rate, whereas I never had the fan kick in yet on these. There'll be other people that push these to the limit and really get that fan spinning, but overall, I'm seeing a phenomenal performance. I'm also seeing the most phenomenal performance bang for your buck out of the Air, and I'm wondering why you would get the Pro. Obviously, if you want the touch bar, great. Don't care for the touch bar myself, so I'm happy with physical buttons. Are they much difference in weight? Not really. Is there much difference in design? No. As I've showed before, they're exactly the same on the back. It's only that edge wedge profile that you get. M1 processor, instant on. They just resume like your phone and iPad do. So absolutely sensational in that sense. So the main thing I noticed actually using these devices was that instant on. Just boom, power on, ready to go, no boot, no nothing. And I just think people will absolutely be drawn to that, given we kind of expect that now, right? So let's look at the pricing here. MacBook Air, 8-core CPU, 7-core GPU, $1,599 Australian. With an 8-core GPU and a 512 gigabyte storage up from the 256, $1,949. $50 more gets you the M1 chip, 8-core processor, 8-core GPU, 256 storage on the Pro. So you're paying a premium of about $400 for the Pro, for a touchpad, for cooling, for not much else. The $22.99 version of this, 512 gig storage. I'll be honest, I think at $1,949, the 512 gigabyte storage model of the MacBook Air is the new benchmark for laptop computers. At $1,599, the new MacBook Air at 256 gig storage, outrageous, brilliant. And frankly, there's no reason to buy anything else unless you are looking at serious video editing and stuff. This device here is your high school device. This device here is all you need for the basics of university, unless you're getting into videography, photography, and those kind of things at an extreme level, because these will do what you need, and this will do what you need, even with 7-core GPU. The only difference is it'll take that little bit longer to render that video, but it can do it. I think that's what's critical. Yeah, blown away. These prices are excellent. The performance is out of this world. And I actually can't wait to watch a bunch of other people's videos and read their reviews about where they do or don't perform well. Just quickly, when this whole processor was announced, there was a bunch of people that said, oh, but I've got an Intel processor and oh, it's going to be an outrage. They're going to abandon people. It makes no sense. Every app works on here. When you first launch an app that's not made for the M1 processor, it says, I've got to install Rosetta. Boom, does it, installs Rosetta, and then the apps load and launch. If you want to test the performance of a Rosetta app versus an M1 app, you can actually run an M1 capable app in Rosetta mode just by clicking on Get Info in the file properties. And universal apps show with universal in brackets in the properties. But why would you do that? That's just overthinking the whole situation. The bottom line is every app you want in the Mac App Store will work here. In the future, apps will be enhanced and improved to really work even better. I've installed some iPad and iOS apps on here. They're good. I'm not ready for that yet. I don't see need for that. I'm carrying around a phone already. A couple of them crashed. It's like, I don't know. Well, I don't need that just yet, but maybe that'll grow on me with a lot more time with one of these devices as my daily driver. I'm going to choose to use the MacBook Pro as my daily driver because my wife has the original MacBook, that super thin, small 12-inch screen device. So I'm going to get her to use this because I think she will be blown away by those instants on the batteries and those video editing capabilities. Just awesome stuff from Apple. Full review up at EFTM.com, but you've pretty much got everything you need right here, as you can do by just clicking subscribe here on the channel. You'll see all the videos as we pump them out.